You walked away from that conversation feeling confused, maybe a little guilty, like somehow, despite everything, you were the one who got it wrong. You replay it in your head. You second-guess yourself. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice asks, "Am I the problem?" You are not the problem. But understanding why you feel that way requires going somewhere most people never look. Narcissism is not vanity. It is not confidence. It is not someone who loves themselves too much. The real answer is far stranger than that. A narcissist is a person whose entire psychological architecture is built around one desperate, invisible need: to never feel the shame of being ordinary, flawed, or wrong. And to protect that need, they have developed a set of behavioral tools so precise, so consistent, so deeply unconscious that they can dismantle your sense.
This is not manipulation in the way you think of manipulation. It is not a plan. It is a survival strategy built into the nervous system. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. Dr. Craig Malkin, a clinical psychologist at Harvard Medical School and author of Rethinking Narcissism, describes narcissism not as a fixed personality type, but as a spectrum. Everyone has some narcissistic traits: the need to feel special, to be seen, to matter. Those are universal human drives. But at the extreme end of the spectrum, that need becomes so consuming, so fragile, so all or nothing, that the person cannot function without a constant supply of admiration, control, and superiority. And that is where the damage begins. Not to them, to you. So why do you always end up feeling like the problem? There are 4 mechanisms at work, and each one is invisible until you know exactly what to look for. The first mechanism is called DARVO. It stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, and Offender. Dr. Jennifer Freyd, a psychologist at the University of Oregon, identified this pattern while studying how abusers respond to being confronted. When a narcissist feels accused, criticized, or exposed, even mildly, they do not defend themselves in the way most people do. They do not explain. They do not apologize. They flip the entire situation. You brought up something that hurt you, and suddenly you are the one being cruel. You asked a reasonable question, and suddenly you are controlling. You expressed a need, and suddenly you are selfish. The reversal is so fast, so total, and so emotionally charged that your brain loses the thread of what actually happened. You entered the conversation with a concern. You left it defending your character. That is DARVO. And it works because your brain is wired to resolve conflict, not win it. When someone you care about is in pain, your nervous system pulls you toward repair. The narcissist knows this, not consciously, but instinctively, and they use it every time.
The second mechanism is gaslighting. The term comes from a 1944 film in which a man manipulates his wife into believing she is losing her mind. In psychological practice, gaslighting refers to any pattern of behavior that causes a person to question their own perception, memory, or sanity. A narcissist will tell you that something did not happen the way you remember. They will tell you that you are too sensitive, that you imagined it, that you always do this. Repeated often enough, this does not just create self-doubt in the moment. Research published in the journal Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin shows that when a trusted person consistently contradicts your perception of reality, your brain begins to override its own memories with the socially provided version. You do not just forget what happened, you replace it. And once your memory is unreliable to yourself, you have lost your most important tool for self-defense. You cannot argue with someone who has already convinced you that your own mind cannot be trusted.
The third mechanism is intermittent reinforcement. This one is perhaps the most powerful, and it is the reason you cannot simply leave, even when you know you should. B.F. Skinner's foundational behavioral research demonstrated that the most psychologically addictive reward schedule is not consistent reward. It is not consistent punishment. It is random reward. A slot machine does not pay out every time. It pays out sometimes, unpredictably. And that unpredictability creates a compulsion that consistent reward never could. A narcissist does not treat you badly all the time. If they did, leaving would be easy. Instead, they cycle. Cold, then warm. Dismissive, then adoring. Critical, then suddenly generous and present in a way that feels like the person you fell in love with has returned. Your brain's dopamine system responds to that return the same way it responds to a winning pull on a slot machine. It floods with relief and reward. And that chemical response binds you to the relationship far more powerfully than any consistent kindness ever could. You are not weak for staying. You are responding to one of the most powerful neurological traps ever studied.
The fourth mechanism is the most subtle. It is called the reality distortion field. Not a scientific term, but an accurate one. Over time, a narcissist does not just make you doubt specific memories or specific events. They reshape your entire framework for interpreting what is normal. Slowly, gradually, the baseline shifts. What once would have alarmed you becomes unremarkable. What once would have been unacceptable becomes something you make excuses for. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a clinical psychologist and professor at California State University, Los Angeles, has spent decades studying narcissistic relationships. She describes this process as a slow erosion of the self. You do not notice it happening. You adjust and adjust and adjust, until one day you look up and realize you have been walking on eggshells for so long that you have forgotten what solid ground feels like.
And here is the part that almost nobody talks about. The narcissist does not experience any of this the way you experience it. Their inner world is not the world of a calculating predator. It is the world of a terrified child. Dr. Malkin and others in the field describe the narcissist's core wound as a profound pre-verbal sense of shame. Somewhere in early development, often through inconsistent or conditional love, they internalize the belief that their true self is fundamentally unworthy. The grandiosity, the manipulation, the need for control, all of it is armor. It is a fortress built around a self that believes at its deepest level that it will be abandoned if it is truly seen. This does not excuse the behavior, but it explains why the behavior never changes in any lasting way. Therapy for narcissism is notoriously difficult, not because narcissists are evil, but because genuine therapeutic progress requires the client to sit with vulnerability, with uncertainty,
With the possibility of being wrong. And that is precisely the experience the narcissist's entire personality has been constructed to avoid. So what does this mean for you? It means the confusion you feel is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of how sophisticated the system you encountered truly is. Your self-doubt is not evidence that you were the problem. It is evidence that the mechanisms worked exactly as they were designed to. A healthy relationship does not leave you questioning your own sanity. A healthy disagreement does not leave you defending your fundamental worth as a person. The fact that you are asking whether you were the problem is itself a piece of data. Genuinely problematic people rarely ask that question. Research from the University of Queensland found that people who have been in close relationships with narcissists consistently score higher on measures of self-blame, anxiety, and reality testing difficulty than the general population, even years after the relationship has ended. The effects are not just emotional,
They are cognitive. They change the way you process information about yourself and your environment.
Dr. DARVO describes this as reclaiming your own narrative. Not the story the narcissist wrote about you. Not the version where you were always too sensitive, always too needy, always the one who couldn't take a joke or let things go. Your version. The one where your feelings were real, your perceptions were accurate, and your confusion was not a character flaw, but a rational response to an irrational system. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not the problem. You walked away from that conversation feeling like you had done something wrong. Now you know why. And knowing why is the first step towards something the narcissist never wanted you to have: clarity.